You're listening to Now I've Heard Everything, conversations with the icons of our time.
Both of these political parties, the Republicans and Democrats, are simply the opposite wings of the same bird. And the American people are the ones getting that bird.
Cable news personality Lou Dobbs today on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Lou Thompson. Whatever happened to the idea that the American people are the ones in charge of their own country? Well, according to longtime cable news personality Lou Dobbs, American populism has been replaced by a network of elites in government and business. Dobbs wrote about it in his 2007 book called Independence Day. I talked with him about it in the fall of 2007, just about a year before the 2008 election. And Dobbs spared neither side his criticism. In a moment, our conversation.
We're about to take a step back and listen to an iconic voice from our recent past. It's one of over 10,000 interviews noted radio personality Bill Thompson did over a 30-year span. We think you'll enjoy it.
So here now from 2007, Lou Dobbs.
Maybe we'll get one thing out of the way right off the bat. This book is not meant as sort of the announcement of your presidential candidacy, is it?
It is not in any way meant as that, because there is no such thing. It is, however, a plea to those in our society who have the capacity and the character and vision for leadership to step forward and represent the people and bring back this great representative republic of ours and free enterprise democracy to the prominence that it deserves, and the representation of the people that we all deserve.
How do you define populism?
Populism, in its easiest definition, is it is the opposite of elitism, which we are, of course, bound by these days, whether it be the elites of politics or business or academia or media. The reality is populism is a recognition of that great radical populist document, the Constitution of the United States, which begins with the words, "We the people." And I'm one of those folks who still believes in a sixth grade civics class that the people are still the wisest source of our national destiny, and with consult of the people and the consent of the governed, we'll get to the places that our forefathers promised we might.
But that's not to say that elites are, as a class, less or are somehow inferior as leaders, and that the general population as a whole is generally the better leader. I mean, you're just talking for a return to the populist roots as opposed to total elitist rule.
I am, well, to put it another way, I believe that people, the American people, deserve representation in their government, which has been crowded out by elites of business, spending over $2 billion a year lobbying in Washington, D.C., a president, 100 senators, and 435 congressmen, and to the detriment of the American people. It is not to say that elites are bad people. It is not to say that those who have been successful in life are bad people, because they certainly are not. But it is to say that our elites, particularly in government and business, have combined to neglect their responsibilities to society at large, to this democracy. And that cannot stand.
How is this substantively different from what it was 20 years ago, 30, 50 years ago?
Even 25 years ago. Corporate America did not have the dominance that it has today over our political system, both electorally and legislatively. As I said, $2 billion spent in lobbying. We're watching elections now that are, as we go into the full throat of this primary campaign, elections that are going to cost about $100 billion for each candidate. It is, first of all, that's obscene, because it is the purchase of a presidency. And the purchase of an office is not something anticipated by our founders. It is not, of course, a new development, but the absolute stranglehold that corporate America has, and special interests have, over our political system is just overwhelming even the concept of democracy in this country.
Has it so alienated many people that they figure, what can I do? I'm just going to drop out of the whole process.
Oh, absolutely. And it's the reason that President Bush has the lowest, is at a near historic low in his approval rating. Only Harry Truman had a lower approval rating than he. And our Congress has achieved that great watershed mark. They do have the lowest approval rating of any Congress in history, even lower than the 110th so-called do-nothing Congress led by Republicans, which seemed almost insurmountable as a historic mark. But the Democratic leadership of the House and the Senate have achieved what the Republicans came close to doing just a year ago.
They came up with that really good immigration reform bill.
Oh, yes, which was defeated twice in the Senate because the people said, you're not going to ram this down the throats of Congress. You're not going to ram it down our throats. And this is goes to the issue, Bill, the idea that there is such a divide between our leaders in this country and our elected officials and the people they're supposed to be serving. This is one of the reasons that the Congress, obviously, and the President have such low poll ratings. It's also one of the reasons we see such low voter turnout. And it's one of the reasons we see the most extreme of the political spectrum on the left and the right dominating the two-party primary system. It's one of the reasons I say that the independent way is now the American way. Because both of these political parties, I define them in the book as simply the Republicans and Democrats are simply the opposite wings of the same bird. And the American people are the ones getting that bird.
We'll leave that metaphor.
It's just a metaphor. It'll just float out there in the atmosphere for a while.
You seem to have, despite the serious message in this book, you do seem to have fun conveying it.
Well, I take the issues very seriously and the challenges very seriously. I don't take myself too seriously. You know, you began by asking me if I'm running for president. I'm asked to run for president nearly certainly every week. And I just cannot, if I take myself too seriously, I'm going to end up crying over in a corner somewhere or sucking on my thumb in that dark corner. And I'd prefer to not do that. Just laugh at the absurd and try to change as best I can as much of the direction that we're headed in and bring to light the issues that I think are critically important to our future.
Well, let me ask you about the elites in the media.
Sure.
You and I are both in the media, so I guess I'm talking about our bosses, I suspect. Why do we pay so much attention to what Britney Spears is doing and not nearly enough attention to the trade imbalance?
Well, the reason is that Britney Spears attracts a much larger audience, and in the advertising-supported mainstream media, that is very, very important. I'm part of that media, and I'm certainly one of the few people who is so fortunate that I don't have to put on Britney Spears or O.J. Simpson or Anna Nicole Smith or the diaries of some mad celebrity deviant in order to attract an audience, because I focus on, I've been accused, by the way, of talking about free trade and the outsourcing of jobs, illegal immigration, and border security in order to attract an audience. I mean, I've had the partisans in the media on the left and the right are so sometimes criminally invested in their ideology that they can even come up with that. And I've asked these same critics, if outsourcing of jobs and free trade and illegal immigration and border security is so popular a topic with the world, why do you suppose we're the only show that focuses on issues, period? And they haven't really come up with a good answer. But I'm delighted to have that freedom and to have an audience that demands more of my broadcast. That, for me, as an advocacy journalist, is thrilling.
I think many people underestimate what America's appetite is. I think we sometimes say all they want is Britney Spears and Paris Hilton.
Well, I'm the guy who believes in that sixth grade civics class. I truly believe that not one of us is as smart as all of us. And my audience, I think you're exactly right. I truly believe, Bill, the American people are far smarter than executive producers and newspaper and magazine editors give them credit for being. And I know for a fact, on any given subject, in my audience, there will be dozens of people who are a lot smarter than our reporter on that issue, our writer on that issue, and certainly than I am on that issue. We try to give our audience the respect they deserve, and treat these issues with the weight that they deserve.
So is there then a parallel thing with the elites who run the government? They say, well, don't worry yourselves about the trade matters or immigration matters. We're going to concentrate on the things that are really important, like the Pledge of Allegiance and your membership in the ACLU and so forth.
Exactly, and don't forget gun control, abortion, and gay marriage. We certainly, we can have individual liberties in this country. We just simply, there's just certain liberties we can't take, according to some of these elites. And, of course, that's utter nonsense. The Constitution stands as a document that says Americans will have equal rights of opportunity. They will have equal rights, period. And that's one of the two basic values in that Constitution. The other is individual liberty, individual freedom. And we have to respect one another and those rights and those opportunities that flow from it. We're not. Just about half of Hispanic students in this country today are dropping out of high school. Just about half of black students are dropping out of high school. We have people arguing at the left and the right, the Democratic and Republican parties, over whether or not there should be magnet or charter schools. That would be the argument on the left. And on the right, of course, there are vouchers because on the right they want choice. I personally see only one choice, and that's provide absolute high-quality excellence in public education in the community in which the student lives. And that requires something that Daniel Patrick Moynihan styled as participatory democracy. That means we have to be engaged in those neighborhoods and communities in which we live. And whether we have children still in school or we are yet to have children in those schools, we have to be involved with those school boards. We have to be down at City Hall. I had a mentor, a wonderful man, Monsignor Richard O'Keefe, when I was just starting out and as a young reporter, literally starting out. And I really hated going to city council meetings and covering them. And he said to me, Lou, and he had a wonderful Irish accent. He said, Lou, remember this when you get frustrated. Someday you're going to be covering national politics. And while City Hall may be a little boring to you and a little difficult, and you may even get disgusted with the politics, City Hall is, after all, the shit pot of politics, but it is the model for all politics. And I've tried to remember that when I get frustrated with national politics as well as local. But it's critically important to be engaged in both.
There is a phrase that is commonly seen now in magazine articles, even some book titles these days, losing our democracy. Are we in danger, you think, of losing our democracy?
No, I think we've lost it. I think that's, for right now, it's certainly in suspension. When the American people cannot project to their elected officials their will, when the elected officials of this country, both in the Senate, the House, and, of course, the White House, don't hold respect for the will of the people or the rule of the majority, the will of the majority, you've lost the basic tenet of democracy. If the majority cannot project their will and have their government respond to it, this is no longer a democracy. We have elected officials saying, in both parties, saying to the American people, I understand you don't like the fact that 6 years after September 11th, we haven't secured your borders. I know you don't like the fact that we have 30,000 people wounded in Iraq and almost 4,000 killed. And I know you don't like the fact that this is really the politics of oil. But you see, we really are smarter than you, and therefore we will follow this misadventure to its conclusion, which, roughly will cost thousands more lives and thousands more wounded, and literally $2 trillion for a nation that now has a $9 trillion national debt, a $6 trillion trade debt, and we are bankrupting not only ourselves as a result of the idiotic policies that this government is following, we're bankrupting future generations. People look at us and they say, but America, we're a superpower. Well, we're also the world's largest debtor nation, and that is simply unsustainable.
Lou Dobbs died this past July. He was 78. Now, you can get your copy of Independence Day by Lou Dobbs by tapping the link in our show notes, by clicking the link in the description below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or by going to our website, heardeverything.com. We may earn an Amazon commission if you make a purchase. Heardeverything.com is where you can also hear my 2013 interview with Dan Bongino.
We think elected officials have the power because we elect them, but what you don't realize when you're behind the scenes is they don't. Who really has the power, Bill, is this series of cronies, bureaucrats, paid-off insiders.
And my 1994 conversation with Lonnie Guinier.
We've sound-bitten democracy. We think democracy is what we do. We think democracy means that the majority should rule without understanding what the limitations of majority rule are.
And of course, we post new episodes of Now I've Heard Everything every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. And thank you so much for listening. Next time on Now I've Heard Everything, it's the first Monday in October, which means the Supreme Court is back in action. And so we'll revisit my 1997 interview with the great thriller writer Brad Meltzer, whose first book, his 1997 debut, was called The 10th Justice.
The clerks are basically 28 to 32-year-olds. They're usually 1 year out of college, and yet they are charged with really doing first drafts and doing research for the biggest decisions that come out in the country today. If you think what the Supreme Court gave us, we have First Amendment rights, we have desegregation, and who do we entrust it to? These young people with little or almost no experience.
That's next time on Now I've Heard Everything. I'm Bill Thompson.